I'm joined by University of Central Oklahoma senior defensive lineman Zacary Stilwell. Zach, thank you for taking time this afternoon to come on and talk to me. Could you start by telling the viewers and listeners a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. My name is Zach Stilwell. I'm from Yukon, Oklahoma. I've been here at UCO for 5 years now. I'm a senior kinesiology student, defensive lineman. That's about it.
And now, I was not aware. I think it was maybe after Pitt last year. I think I was talking with Dante and your father. I had no clue that Mustang was that despised up there in the Yukon area. What is that rivalry like?
It's pretty intense. I mean, it's definitely some of the biggest crowds I've ever played against or in front of. There's probably 15,000 people at those games. I mean, it's just a great atmosphere. I wish, my high school career success against Mustang would have been a little bit better, but, just being there, being in front of that many people, all your friends, your family are out there, it's a good time. It's a lot of fun.
And now during that week, was there trash talk between you and Dom and Hudson, seeing how those were Mustang guys? Was there any trash talking going on?
No. I mean, pretty much once I got to UCO, me and Dom and all those guys, we were cool. Like, I mean, there was no animosity. I'm not a Yukon Miller anymore. We're here. We're Broncos. I guess they were Broncos, but now we're both UCO Broncos, and now we're trying to win on our team. So, yeah.
Okay, good. I like the high road taken there. I know some of the more guys trash talking got kind of intense there. So I'm glad somebody took the high road on this day. Okay,
it would be a little different if we were a little bit better. I mean, my senior year we lost by 40, and then I think the years after we lost by upwards of more. So maybe if it were a little bit more competitive, I would have been. But what can you do?
True. Okay. That's true. Understandable. Now, when I remember when watching your tape there, and a few things that stuck out to me, you have a really good swim move. And now I always point this out. Sometimes at the high school level, moves aren't necessarily there, or if they aren't that refined. But looking at the tape then and watching you play now, the spin move is a big. Is a big part of your game. Where did that come from?
I don't really know. It was kind of just one of those things that you pick up. Obviously I was doing drills and like working on the moves, but you have all these tools in your tool belt, and then kind of once you start playing, you're like, oh, this works more than this. So then at that point, I'm just out there playing, having fun, playing with instinct, and it's just like that's just what I do. I don't even think about it. Sometimes I look back at the play after it's over and be like, man, I don't even remember doing that move. Like if I'm watching film, like, man, I don't remember doing that. So.
And how do you know, I guess, when to use that move compared to when to use some of the other moves available to you?
So like sometimes before the snap, I'll have a move in my head that I want to do. I can also tell by like the O-lineman's stance, if he's real heavy on his hands, I know they're a big ISO team or inside zone team. I know he's probably base blocking me. I'm going to take a shot on third and short, fourth and short. I'm going to swim out of my stance. Maybe he'll fall on his face. Maybe I'll stalemate him, we'll see. But by tendencies, and then also, if I'm getting double teamed on my left side and the ball is going way over there, no use of just staying where I'm at. I'm going to spin out of it and go try and make a tackle. But it's just a feel thing.
And that's another thing too that I noticed on that tape and throughout your career so far is your effort and your motor on plays, running ball carriers down on the opposite side of the field, 5-10 yards down the field. You're still running after, you're still making the tackle in some cases. Where does that effort, where does that motor of yours come from?
I mean, that's mostly from, my mom and dad and my brother. Growing up in that family, it's they instilled that in me young. When I was growing up being recruited, my dad and my brother would tell me, you're not the biggest. Like, the way you're going to get attention is by making plays, showing that you care. And that's how I tried to get recruited was, I'm making those plays so far down the field and kind of putting my motor out there, and, it just kind of stuck. It's fun. It's like, and when you go and make a tackle and there's a safety behind you, like, hey, good tackle, you're like, yeah, I did that. And it's cool. It's just high effort instilled in me by my parents and the people who have helped me.
And now you mentioned the size thing, because now you also played in and you also played some tackle. Now I have to ask, now what is that like? Because obviously, tackle, you're going up against theoretically bigger guys. What was that adjustment like to you? Do you have a preference between playing on the outside or playing on the interior?
As far as a preference goes, I would say no. I just love being on the field, and I know that's super cliche answer, but wherever the team needs me, I'll show up and do what's needed to be done. Preference, I kind of like playing on the inside a little bit more. Being the edge guy is fun. You get to stand up. It's, in my opinion, it's a little bit easier physically because when you're inside, you're taking double teams and just big dudes, like you said. But as far as going playing on the inside, there's usually a little bit less thinking time, and for me, that's usually what kills me is I think too much. So when I'm on the inside and everything's a lot faster, I play a little bit better. And yeah, I don't know. I just want to be on the field, really.
Okay. Makes sense. And another thing I noticed too, you have a really great skill for shooting through the gaps. Like you're able to kind of exploit those. It seems like at times with relative ease, because I know timing that can be difficult. How are you able to do that consistently at the level that you do?
I've been training my get off since I couldn't even tell you. I was training with my brother in the backyard at 5 years old. So that's been the thing. My dad played college O-line. Obviously, my brother played college O-line as well. But they always told me that the hardest thing to block was somebody who's always, in your face, just that high effort, just never stops. So all I'm thinking about in my stance is, I'm gonna watch the ball get snapped. I'm gonna read my key, and I'm gonna get off as hard as fast as I can. Sometimes I'm not thinking to shoot the gap, but I get off before the old lineman and he's still in his stance. And, it just kind of works out that way.
Okay. And now one thing I just learned when doing the research here, now you were a state qualifier in wrestling. Now, how has that helped you, that wrestling background, how has that helped you in your football career?
It's helped tremendously. I probably couldn't name all the ways that I don't even know it's helped me. But, obviously being a bigger guy, you wrestle, you throw, there's a lot of stuff happening on your feet. It's helped me, balance, quick feet. And, wrestling's hard. In my opinion, I put it up there with some of the hardest mentally, physically sports, there is. So it instills that work ethic and that resiliency that is obviously needed for college football.
And when you kind of look back at your high school career, you had almost 200 tackles, 19 sacks. What kind of sticks with you the most about that time?
The stats are cool. I love playing high school football, but I think the things I think back to the most are, my teammates at the high school level, because I went to Yukon my whole life. So I grew up, a lot of those guys I was neighborhood friends with before we were even in school, so hanging out with those guys, getting to play with those guys. And then, Friday night lights are a lot of fun, making a play, looking up in the stands, celebrating everybody. And I got people that are in my classes, they're cheering me on, I'm high-fiving them, stuff like that. It's a lot of fun.
And now you mentioned earlier. Now you do have an older brother. Tyler Stilwell was all conference lineman for us now. So obviously, you obviously knew what UCO had to offer. But what was that process like for you, though, that still made you decide that you also wanted to be a part of the UCO football program for your collegiate career?
Yeah. I didn't have a whole lot of offers coming out of high school. I only had two other committable offers. I had Southwest Baptist in Missouri, which when I was in high school, they hadn't won a game in 2 years, whatever. And then I had Harding, who a lot of my high school coaches played at Harding, so I had a kind of an in with them. But they wanted me to play offensive line, and I've always kind of been the black sheep. Him and my dad was an offensive lineman, my brother's offensive lineman, and I wanted to be different. So I didn't really want to do that. And then at the last second, Coach Sanders, right when Coach Dorrell got here, Coach Sanders swooped in, and him and Coach Leck, gave me an offer, and it just happened to be my best one. It's 30 minutes from home, all my friends, all my family. It was a no-brainer. It was my best offer, super close to home. And like you said, I was familiar with everything. And we had Coach Dorrell come in, who, obviously I did my research, but he's a pretty good coach. So I was excited about that. And I like Coach Sanders and all that. So.
And now, given though the success that your older brother had, I think some might say, okay, maybe I want to go somewhere else, kind of not be in that shadow, so to speak, because obviously when people see the last name, they also think of your brother. Did that ever factor in, or were you just kind of used to this throughout high school, throughout, I guess, just growing up in general, to where you're now comfortable, not necessarily being in his shadow, but knowing how to kind of carve out your own niche, your own role, your own, being you?
Yeah, it's kind of been like that, pretty much my whole life, but it's never been a bad thing. My brother is an amazing person. I'm getting married in a month, and he's my best man at my wedding. Like, I love him. So, that's never been a bad thing to be under his shadow. And like I said, I wanted to be a little bit different. So defensive lineman. And on top of that, like, there's been so much turnover. Well, I say so much turnover at UCO. Obviously, it was under Coach Bobeck on all those guys, and then they cleaned shop, and here comes Coach Dorrell and Coach Sanders. I guess Sanders was from Bobeck, but anyway, and Coach Leck, and it was kind of a fresh slate. And it's never been a bad thing. It's always been good, and like you said, he's all conference, and that's something to look up to. And I've always looked up to him and try to just take that next little step so I could rub elbows with him at Thanksgiving and be like, hey, I got a leg up on you, so whatever. But.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, though, all you gotta do, you gotta just bring out the hardware there. I feel like that puts you in the conversation, like you have that at least there. You gotta just crack that little ring case, just close it. I feel like that should put you at the table there, on that kind of level. Now, that would be my counter to that. Now, if that was ever brought up, I would just open up the ring case, close it. I feel like that would do the talking for.
Definitely, that's staying in the back pocket for now. But he, when we went up to Ferris and played in the snow, his dream was always to play in the snow. But so I got that on him too. But I told him I didn't recommend.
Oh, yeah, no, good. That's a good point. And I'm curious because now I've talked to guys about that, and some were mixed. I know the receivers didn't like it because they couldn't get footing, but some others were like, it was pretty cool to play in the snow. So, what was it about the snow for you though that's not a thing you enjoy doing or would wish to do again?
I don't think it was the snow that made it not enjoyable. Like, obviously it was cold. It was a different type of cold that I've ever experienced here in Oklahoma. But yeah, I had a blast, except for obviously the outcome of the game. But the snow was not the issue for me. It was the game and playing against those guys. But there's nothing you can do about it.
Fair enough. So you get the UCO now. You end up redshirting. I have to ask because now obviously here you go from being a starter, playing almost every snap defensively. You deal with offensive line as well. What was that adjustment like? That experience like going from playing in every game to now playing in none for a full season?
I mean, that was hard. I mean, freshman year, my redshirt year, and my redshirt freshman year were probably the hardest years. In terms of like staying engaged and wanting to be here, because it's easy to slack off when the travel squad goes up to wherever they're going on, Friday morning, and I've got Thursday, Friday, Saturday off. It's easy to just go home and do whatever. But, I always tell the freshmen that come in now when they're asking me for advice, I'm like, I mean, you got to stay engaged. You got to go to class. That's what'll get 90% of your freshman class will be grades. So I just kept my head down, went to class, and obviously my parents have always pushed me to be a good student. So that helped. Just kept my head down, kept pushing, kept working hard. And, eventually it ended and I got to be back on the team. I was on the team, but, more involved playing. I'm not on scout team anymore, I just showed up every day, and then eventually it was over, really.
And some of those upperclassmen in 22, Michael Slater, Rob Fuentes, what was that? I guess what were you able to take away from those guys in terms of maybe how they did things on the field, but maybe also from like a leadership standpoint? What were you able to kind of take away from those guys?
Having those guys like that when I first got here was obviously a huge shock. I mean, those guys are, looking back, they're great dudes, but think about it as an 18-year-old freshman, you get there, you're like, man, this is kind of scary. These are big dudes, and they're a little loose in the head, but I mean, Slater was great in the room. He would always ask me questions and point to the board like, hey, this is what this got to do. And he would always ask Coach Sanders, hey, what should we do in this situation? Just asking questions and being a good leader. And Rob was always on the energy. I mean, he made it fun to be at practice. But just, kind of take a little tool from each one of them and make my own kind of style of helping the younger guys and being a better player and better leader and whatever. Those guys helped me out a lot for sure.
And then in 2023, you're able to play in all 11 games. What would you say was when you first got in the game, did it live up to what you thought college football would be like from an on-field perspective? Was the game faster than you thought it was? What was that like?
Yeah. It was a lot faster. I went out there as a 2, my redshirt freshman year behind Zane Adams, and I got out there on the second or third drive of the game, whatever it was, and the O-lineman looked at me and he pointed and he was like, "Who are you? Like, you're not even on the scout. You're not even on the scouting report." And I was like, "Oh man, that hurts," And I'm just like, it had me in my head for a little bit, and then that first, I would say the whole season, the game was really fast. I was out there trying to stay afloat, trying to survive, but I'm very glad it happened because, the next year and the next year, it's much slower. Like, the game has slowed down for me so much. I can see more, I can understand more, I can help guys more. It was a lot faster in high school, especially after redshirting a year. You haven't played in a full speed game in an entire year. So, yeah.
And during that time, when the game was really fast for you and you're trying to find your footing, how did you kind of stay in a good headspace when it could have been easy to get, overwhelmed and really start questioning maybe your own ability to do this at this level?
I mean, it definitely did. Like I'm sure you've experienced this, but like when you're in that athletic space and you're getting passed up by guys and you're getting beat on a bunch of reps, and it's almost like the yips. I mean, obviously, it's like you don't feel adequate, and it's like, man, I'm not even sure I want to be here anymore. But that's where your teammates and your coaches and your support group come through. And I had to go. I'd go home sometimes and be like, man, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. But my parents were always there, and my friends, and I had those older guys like Zane and Hunter and Rob and Slater, and so many guys that have helped me out. I'm so thankful. But you go to those guys and you're like, hey man, like how do I do this, or what do you do when you're feeling down like this? And they tell you, and you go on, and it gets better at the end of the day.
And then that off season, Coach Lechtenberg leaves. He gets the head job at Millsap's. Coach Swanson comes in. What was that adjustment period like for you? Because now here you are. You've been in that system for a couple of years now. You had the relationship with Coach Sanders and such. What was that adjustment like for you? Learning Coach Swanson, learning that new scheme.
Man, I loved it. I mean, I hate to see those guys go, but I love Swanee. Me and him play the game together sometimes. We're boys outside of football until it's time to not be boys, and he can get on you. But my dream school out of high school was Emporia State, and he was the D-line GA there who was recruiting me. And the reason I wanted to go there is because I loved him and the D-line coach there. So when I saw he was coming to UCO, I was like, man, this is perfect. I was so excited to have him there. He's a great coach, great teacher, great leader. I mean, I can't ask for somebody better. But it was a blessing, and super happy when it happened.
And was it a seamless transition for you in terms of the on the field, maybe some of the differences in the schemes and the way things were ran from Lechtenberg to Swanson?
Yeah. So, and that defense, it was, constantly changing, and the rules were, complicated. Not so much that you couldn't get it, but it was like slowing you down, So when Swanee came in, our defense is super simple. I love it. The D-line has so much freedom. You can do absolutely, well, I won't say absolutely, but pretty much anything you want to do, you can go do it. As long as you're aggressive, as long as you're aggressive, making the running back make his cut in the backfield, getting the quarterback off his spot, whatever you're doing, as long as you're disrupting the game, you're doing good. I love it. If I were to coach, I would do the same exact thing. Make the game slow down for the players and just let them go play.
And that season for you there, now you had a couple of big plays there. First, you had your first career sack against Missouri Southern, again off a great swim move. Spin move. What kind of walk me through that play there? How were you able to make that sack?
Man, I don't honestly remember it, but I do remember that other lineman was talking trash to me. I wouldn't say anything back, but he was constantly chirping me, and I think what was that, 2 years ago? So I was still kind of young, and I was like, man, I'm gonna go out there and I'm just gonna hit this guy, right? And I go out there and I just stick my helmet underneath his chin, and the quarterback was sitting right there. I was like, oh, and I hit my spin move and grabbed him. I don't know. That's about all there was to that one.
What did that do for you confidence wise though? Getting that sack and I don't like what did that do for you?
I would say it was a huge confidence booster, but it's like it feels good, because I had however many in high school, but to say I've got a collegiate sack, one day I'll be able to tell my kids like, yeah, I played college football. however many sacks and however many tackles, and just have my kids look at me and be like, my dad's so cool. I hope they say that at least. That's like my dream, I guess. But it's just being up there with those guys that said they've done it before, and huge confidence booster, and just get to say I've done
it. And then later on in that season, now you had a big fumble recovery against Missouri Western. Now, first I want to ask, because there was that long weather delay. What was that weather delay experience like for you? Was it hard to kind of still stay in a game-ready mindset during that time? What was that like?
No, not for me. I don't think it was very hard to stay in that game-ready mindset, because I'm a pretty laxed player. I'm laughing, having a good time out there, but I listen to like just country music or whatever before the games, and it's calm. I'm not like I gotta get super pumped up, listen to rock music, bang my head against the locker. So it was just like a pregame, whatever. So we just went in there and we were talking, and I was listening to music, and we went out and started playing again. I don't know. I don't think it really affected us that much.
Okay. And now that fumble recovery, that was impressive on a few levels, because number one, the ball was so close to the sideline. The fact you were able to secure that before you or the ball went out of bounds, on top of the field and ball, I'm sure was definitely wet and slippery. How were you able to corral that fumble and secure that turnover force?
Well, I don't really know. It was kind of just an instinct thing, but back in the day, back in Little League, I used to throw the pigskin around and run with the ball. So I've got a little bit of experience with the ball in my hands, but I just knew that it couldn't go out of bounds. Obviously it was a super tight game. And I wasn't playing as much as I wanted to on the D-line. So I was like, man, I'm going to go out here and make a play. Even though I'm not on the field with the defense, I'm going to go make a positive impact on the special teams unit, So I saw the ball, and I knew I couldn't let it go out of bounds, and I just swooped it up. I don't know. I guess my prior training had helped me do
that. And looking back, though, like what does that mean to you to have such a big play in a game that kept MIAA championship hopes alive at that point?
It's incredible. I mean, that season was just it was unlike anything I've ever experienced before. I mean, obviously we're in that game late in the game, we're losing, we come back, win it in overtime, and then we win a couple close ones after that, and it's like man, like if any of us didn't make one small play, like I don't know, Zane or Hunter's sack or tackle, I'm sure they had, and D Will's hit to force the fumble, and my fumble recovery, and special teams plays, Nicky kicking the field goal, whatever it was, if not all of us came together and did that thing, did our job on that play, we don't win it. And I don't have that hardware to show off at dinner, so I'm happy about
it. Yeah, and now that's what I'm going to ask you too, because now obviously after you all beat Washburn, you beat the brakes off of Emporia. When you get to hold that MIAA trophy, what was in that moment? What was going through your head? What were you feeling? What was that like for you?
It was just overwhelming, almost like all those nights and those days we were talking about earlier, where I'd go home and say I don't really want to do this anymore. I'd have to go to class, and it's like just all over me. I'm in my head about it, and I don't want to do this anymore. It's hard. It just it was all gone. It was like, man, we did it. Like, I'm so excited that this team did what we did, and we did it. It was like I said, overwhelming, and just Can't describe it really.
And now, because I obviously, like I said, we know the type of player your brother was, but now when people, would look and see the Stillwell name, you see all conference. Now you'll see MIAA championship. What does that mean to you to kind of build off maybe the legacy that your brother left? Your brother was on some really good teams, some bold teams, teams that won a lot of football games. But to say you were, a part of that group to kind of take the program to that next level, that next step, winning that conference championship. What does that mean to you though, to kind of be building off of what he kind of started there?
I don't know. I mean, obviously he left behind an incredible legacy, and I'm trying to do the same thing. Just leave something to remember, for people to remember me by. But I don't know. I mean, I'm not in like competition with him or anything, so it's just cool to be like, hey, you've won some bowl games. I won the championship. We both played college football. That was our dream since we were playing catch in the backyard, as young as we could be or whatever. It's just cool that we can share that experience being on some good teams and playing ball at the same place, which is, I mean, I don't know how many people can say that, but that's cool.
And now last year you were voted a team captain. Now because that I think is very telling that the guys in that locker room chose you to represent them in that manner. How did you, I guess, find out about it? And when you did, what was your initial reaction to that?
I mean, how I found out about it, I was actually at the pickleball courts playing pickleball with my roommates and some other teammates. But Doral called me, and I missed the phone call because I was playing pickleball, and I walk over there about 30 minutes later after they had already sent out the message of who the captains were. He had called me like 30 minutes earlier, and then the message came out, and I think it was Jet actually that read it to me. I was like, hey, you're a team captain. I was like, no way, man. Like, you're messing with me. And I go over my phone, and I see I've got a missed call from Doral about an hour ago and a text like, hey, I just wanted to let you know before we sent it out, like, congratulations. And then I saw the text, and it almost didn't feel real, coming off that 2024 season, our senior heavy class, just an incredible group of guys. And for the team to think that I'm that next leader, it meant a lot to me. I'll cherish it forever, probably. But
and assuming that role, was that an easy transition for you, or did it kind of maybe take time to figure out how best you're able to do that?
The transition, I don't think was that hard. It was the transition from the title. I was a leader on the team. I was helping guys. I was encouraging guys. And then all of a sudden I'm labeled as a team captain, and it just felt like all eyes were on me. If I mess up, team captain's messing up. And being in those texts and those meetings with Coach Doral and the leadership council is like, man, these guys really depend on me. And it's like, it's a lot of responsibility, but it's worth it at the end of the day. And I'm glad I can be that guy, and that my peers and my teammates and my friends look up to me to be that guy. But it's hard to communicate with a lot of different people from a lot of different backgrounds that, some guys like Jet and my roommates that I've lived with for 4 years, I can go and be like, hey man, like, you need to do this better. Like, I can go straight up to them and talk to them, and they know I'm not coming from a place of, I don't like you or whatever. I love them and I want what's best for them. But, you've got a new transfer from wherever, and I go up to them like, hey man, you need to, get in line. They think I'm coming at them sideways, whatever. And then, it just ends up being a bigger deal than it is. So learning to communicate with all different walks of life has been challenging, but it's good, and I'm glad that I've been able to experience that.
And were you able to take maybe things that you saw from Zane and Hunter and Noah, Rob, Mike? Were you able to kind of take any of those things and incorporate that into how you currently approach leadership and from that standpoint?
Definitely. A lot of people say that there's no such thing as a lead by example leader. I strongly disagree. Zane almost never said anything, but I watched him. Obviously, he was a great player, but I watched him as I grew up in college football, and like I motto my work ethic. How hard he pushed himself on the field in the weight room. I mean, he was never he was always winning sprints. He was always lifting the most weight. He never said anything, but you could tell that he was working hard, and he was one of the guys. And then Hunter he did the same thing, but Hunter was a great vocal leader. He said what needed to be said regardless of, what was going on. And he held everybody to that standard, and he was also just a great guy. And Zane was too, but and then Noah West was just, he didn't care who you were. He was going to come at you. If you weren't doing it right, he was going to come and let you know. I didn't really get that same experience with Slater and Rob because they were so much older than me, but I'm sure they did the same thing.
And now last year, I first got to ask, because obviously we got the Pitt State win. I know that was big. After the game, finally beat them for the first time, and I forgot how many years. What was that post game celebration like?
It was great. I mean, I don't know how much I can say on here, but we had a gathering and we all hung out and had a good time, and it was some memories that I've got my phone stowed away somewhere that I'll never forget. And, it's a huge accomplishment, and we were super happy about it.
And I also want to go to the Fort Hays game, because now the whole year you as a defensive front were playing at a high level, but that game it felt like it was a different gear. I mean, the consistent pass rush you all were getting there, I felt like you were stifling the run game for the most part. What was working for you all as a defensive front in that football game?
I mean, we had an incredible game plan going into it, what I really think, but we had some heart to heart before that, because some things hadn't really gone our way throughout the season, and we were all just like, we're going to go out and play for each other. We're going to trust what the coaches have given us, and we're just going to play hard, man. And it worked. I mean, we played with our hair on fire. We were running around, making plays left and right, and the game plan that we had, and it all came together that night. The safeties were helping linebackers, safeties, corners, defensive line. I mean, we were all making plays, and it was, it just kept rolling. The ball was rolling, and we just kept on it, and we were able to pull out the win. So.
And I know that the season didn't go the way you all wanted, but the last eight quarters, you all played at a really high level. How can you use that, this offseason to kind of build towards this upcoming season and having a better outcome?
I think we played great the last two games, but we always have had that. Last season we had that. That level of competitiveness and dominance almost in us. There was something missing. We really couldn't put our finger on it, and that's been the big emphasis this offseason is our core values. And a big part of our core values is at the very end of every definition it says, regardless of the circumstances. I think at the very end we were all playing very well because it was easy. Our season was over after this. We got nothing to lose. So we're just going to go out and play, and it obviously worked. So that's been the big point this offseason is is, as captains, as leadership council, talking to the younger guys, bringing them up with us, and not having this disconnect between the older guys, younger guys, travel squad, non-travel squad, and just being a team, man. Like just being a team, a family. We're just gonna go out and play, like we know we can because we've got the talent. We just weren't doing it.
And now earlier, you mentioned about your redshirt season, and like a lot of guys don't make it past that redshirt season a lot of times due to academics and such. But when I look, I mean, there's not a whole lot of you left in that 22 class. I know it's you, there's Dalton Hurd, there's Joey, there's Gabe. I mean, what does it mean to you though? Look back on that experience and see that you were able to stick it out and you kind of have been able to reap the rewards of some, tough times like you had mentioned earlier.
I mean, I'm very thankful and for what I have done, what I've gone through here and what we've all gone through here. I'm very, very proud of it. Doral came in our year, or I guess my freshman year, and we're his first class. Program wasn't quite where they wanted it to be. Doral comes in, we pretty much completely rebuild. And, as we get older, we see these steps and the team is taking and putting it all together. And it's been very rewarding, difficult, but rewarding. And some of those guys, those are some of my best friends. I'll talk to them forever, but yeah, there's not very many of us. And it's almost like, I don't want to say an elite group because that sounds bad, but it's like, these are the guys I got here with. We've grinded this out, and we're still here, so it's cool to be with them.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong in maybe saying elite because I mean, like you all really, right? When Doral comes, obviously there's always a vision of hopes and where you want the program to be. But like you being the first class, you all were the foundation, and those of you that stuck through it now became proof of concept. So now people know, like, oh, okay, like clearly he knows what he's doing, and you and Gabe and Dalton and Joey can attest to that because you were there at the ground floor. You were there when things weren't great. You were there when things were building, when things are good. I mean, what kind of how would I phrase this there? What kind of advice would you give to younger guys that maybe, like you said, are kind of questioning whether or not this is worth it? What kind of advice would you give them to stick it through and really see where the game could take them?
I mean, probably just go back to the old saying, how bad do you want it? There's been a lot of guys that I've seen here that have, decided to stop playing football and go pursue careers, whatever. That's your thing. That's cool. But how bad do you want it? For me, growing up playing football, this has been my dream for so long. I wanted it. So I'm very proud of myself and the guys that have done it with me, because this is hard. I mean, not many people play college athletics, whatever the sport may be, and even fewer make it all 5 years, because it's hard. So if this is what's important to you, show up every day and embrace the suck, really. That's what it comes down to.
Okay. Well, before we get you out of here, we do with all the new guests, kind of some more get to know you type of questions. So, your favorite sports team can be any sport.
My favorite sports team, I don't know. It's probably a tie between the Thunder and then the Chicago Bears. Chicago Bears, I know it's a little weird, but my dad's from Chicago. So growing up, the house was always full of Chicago Bears stuff. Walter Payton, Gale Sayers, all that stuff. It's all over the house. I just stuck with it. So.
Okay, fair enough. Now, obviously, Caleb Williams on the cover of Madden. The Madden curse is. Some say it's a thing. Some say it's not. Does that concern you though? Now that may or may not impact the upcoming season?
I'm not very superstitious. So no, I don't think that's real. And I think he got busted a couple of years ago, didn't it? Or maybe last year, whatever. But I think, I guess knock on wood, but I think he's gonna have a good year. I wasn't a believer. I wasn't a believer at the beginning, just because I am also an OU fan. Grew up an OU fan, UCO fan now, obviously, but grew up an OU fan. He left with Lincoln Riley. I was very, very hurt about that. The way they left, I was like, man, these guys suck. And then they draft him, and I was like, man, I don't like this guy. And then you see what he does. And I'm like, all right, maybe I can get behind this guy. He's pretty good.
Now, do you have a favorite defensive lineman that you like to watch?
My favorite D lineman of all time, it's not even close, has been J.J. Watt. I don't, because that was when I was kind of growing up, getting into the NFL, and you see him and he's just absolutely dominant. It's unmatched. And then I've got ones that I've watched to like Khalil Mack. Obviously, I'm nowhere near the athlete of Khalil Mack, but he played for the Bears. He's a freak. I love watching him. I love watching Aaron Donald, Myles Garrett, Reggie White, Dwight Freeney. I mean, I could go on and on and on. Just guys that I've watched and studied and seen their moves, and kind of who I try to model my game after.
Let's see, your favorite hobby outside of football.
So I'd say I have a couple, but like in the spring, summertime, fishing, golf. I'd say golf's probably my number one all year round, but fishing, golf, and then in the wintertime, I love to hunt, duck hunt, waterfowl hunt. Yeah, I just like to hunt. Golf is probably my number one, though. I'm kind of obsessed with it, is some may call it. But
Okay. Now, of the teammates that you golf with, who would you say is the best?
So I've watched a couple of these episodes, and everyone said the same thing. And I hate to be a bandwagon almost, but it's Jet, and it's not even close. I mean, I haven't played with a lot of the guys, but the guys I have played with, he has his good days and his bad days. Obviously, we're roommates, so I play with him, quite a bit. But he can. I'm happy if I hit it straight, and he's like, "Man, I wanted more spin on it. I'm trying to hit it left to right, whatever." He's, all the terms he's using. I'm like, man, this guy. All right, you can have it.
That does track though. That just does track though. Okay. Now you mentioned that you also duck hunt. Now, are you good with the duck calls? Like, how would you rate your skill in that department?
No, if I'm hunting by myself, obviously I'll give it a call. But if I'm hunting with buddies who I know are better than me, I'll leave the call in the truck. You guys call them in. And some of the most successful hunts I've been on have been ones where we aren't really calling much at all. We're just hiding back in the trees and they're coming to us. But I can do it. I can make it sound like a duck, and I could call a bird in if I needed to, but I'll scare them away more times than not.
Now earlier you mentioned when I had asked about Coach Swanson that you all are on the game at times. How would you rate Coach Swanson's video game skills?
It would depend on the game we're playing. Like we used to play this Ready or Not game. It's like a SWAT force kind of game. He was pretty good at that. And his coach brain kind of takes over, and he's like, you go over here, you do this and this, that, and the other thing. And then we get into some more technical games like Rocket League. I play Rocket League. And he's, probably better than average, but I hate to say that to my guy on the show, but it is what it is.
Now, are you a Xbox, PlayStation, or PC guy?
So growing up, I was always Xbox. I had Xbox 360, Xbox One, Xbox One S, all that stuff. And then when I got to college, all my teammates had PlayStations. So then I did switch to PlayStation 5, and I like it. I think they're the same. I don't think it matters, and especially with all the games that are cross-platform now, it don't matter. But as of right now, I'm a PlayStation guy.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I think a lot of people made that jump around the Xbox 360, Xbox One there. It was like, maybe PlayStation's better because, like you said, I think everybody else made that jump, so then it's like nobody to play with. Nobody's on Xbox anymore, so okay. I do feel that. Let's see. Okay, your favorite food.
I mean, it just depends on the mood I'm in. A safe bet always is like steak and green beans, mashed potatoes, cream corn, whatever. If I'm feeling real comfort food, I love a good chicken fried steak, gravy on it. Actually, one of my favorite foods is it's kind of weird. It's called pork schnitzel, though. It's from Faster Hall, downtown Oklahoma City. It's pork. It's just like a flat piece of pork breaded, and they put mushroom gravy on it. It's basically the same thing now that I'm explaining it out loud. But yeah, those are really good. I love Mexican food too.
Oh, okay. Now, when you get the steak, are you rare, medium rare, or well done?
Nah, I'm right in the middle. I'm right at medium. Some of those guys like it still mooing. I can't do that. I like a little bit of blood, but I don't want it to be a hamburger. Right in the middle.
See, I appreciate. Yeah, see, I appreciate that because everybody's like, you got to get a rare. I'm like, no, because I'm just eating like straight cow. Like like you said, I need something cooked. Like I just, it's just no, I don't. They're like, oh, but it's so juicy, and I'm like, yeah, but isn't medium also juicy as well? I feel like there's not really a great argument for rare. Maybe that's just me, but I feel like every time I say that, I get looked at sideways. So I'm glad somebody understands that that's the best middle ground there. I feel like you still get enough of the juice, but you also get it like you said, not moving at you. So I
Yeah.
appreciate somebody else understanding that because sometimes it is a lonely camp and you're just like, I don't understand. I can't. It's just not enough. So I do appreciate that. Okay. Let's see here. Your favorite musical artist.
I mean, see if you can even see it, but I got Turnpike Troubadours shirt on. They're probably my favorite. I love that like red dirt style, George Strait, more classical style, but yeah, definitely Turnpike Troubadours.
Okay, now you saying red dirt, it jogged memory I had forgotten about. Did you and Hunter talk in depth about that? Because when I brought on Hunter, he went on a great spiel about the difference between, like you said, like modern country, red dirt. It was some other form of country, and it was beautiful because it's someone that just a lot of people just think that country's country. To hear the nuances in that was really interesting. So, did you and Hunter ever have in-depth conversations about that?
Me and Hunter talked about music a lot. We have very similar music taste. I mean, there are, I don't even know half of them. I'm sure there's 100 of them, but I like to think red dirt country is almost like there's like metal, like rock and roll, and then there's like grunge metal. It's like just a little bit off. It's almost like rock and roll. And then you got classical country, and then you got what I like to call pop music. It's like, 70s, 80s, 90s country that's like way back there. And then you got the new age stuff that a lot of it's pretty good, but some of it's not for me. Yeah, there's just a lot. There's a lot. We talked about it a bunch, yeah.
Okay. And now, do you have a favorite song by Turnpike Troubadours?
It depends on the day, really. Uh, they're so versatile. I mean, they're good at everything. So it's like, if I want a sad song, I'd go Diamonds and Gasoline, Empty as a Drum. If I want a rock and roll song, I'd go The Mercury, Winding Stair Mountain. If I want like just a good like chill song, like Time of Day, um, you know, I don't know, like 1968, whatever. If I want like a love song, Pay No Rent, they're all over the place and they're good at everything. So depends on the day.
Okay. Now I ask this question every time as well, but the aux cord, who in your opinion is the best on the team?
This is one of my favorite questions you ask on every one of my watch. It also, well, he's not here anymore, but Rob Givens was a really good aux. Carney is a really good aux. He plays more my style of music. D Will is pretty good. Sometimes he does a little questionable song out there. Yeah. Did you ask who the worst was?
Okay, now it was. No, I was asking who the best was first, and I find it interesting. You had D Will under there, and I think so far everybody else has said D Will is on the side of one of the worst. So to you, what is it about D Will's musical taste that you would rank him higher than some of your other peers do?
Well, like I said, sometimes he'll throw a little bit of a questionable one out there, but I consider myself a music lover. Like the only thing I don't like, and even sometimes I do like it, is like jazz, like kind of slow stuff. But he's very versatile too. He listens to like Lana Del Rey, and he'll listen to Metallica, and he'll listen to whatever, New Drake, and I don't really hate any kind of music. So it's really nice, especially when I've been listening to country all day, and we go in there and he throws on something I'd never heard before, like a rap song or, I don't know, whatever it is. And I'm like, oh, this is a good song. So he's good for kind of a wild card. Not very consistent, but good wild card every now and again.
Okay. And now, who would you say is the worst?
It's kind of a loaded question. It just depends on what you like. Braden Smith throws on some like what are we listening to sometimes. D Will, when he's not on his, when he throws out those weird songs, he's up there on the worst. I don't know. I wouldn't say anyone's just awful every time they get up there, but Cam Dunn does he plays some bad songs sometimes. And then obviously I got to go Lamb. Lamb. I mean, he's not on the team anymore, but Lamb was pretty bad.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask about that because Lamb was always the go-to answer on that. I feel now as a D lineman, did you ever be like Lamb now? Or in this case Braden or Cam, kind of make your D line look bad in this regard here. Like, what is there ever maybe we gotta be better when we're on the aux, represent the unit better. Is that ever a thought to you? Like, it kind of makes the D line look kind of bad in this regard here. People aren't really feeling this.
Yeah. I don't know that it's kind of like. I don't know that makes us look bad. I don't think it does, at least. But yeah, it is like, man, that is one of my D linemen that's up there playing bad music or whatever. So it's kind of funny, but I don't think it really matters now.
Oh, that's great. I always enjoy hearing that because sometimes you get a different answer and it's like, oh, okay, this is new. I got to remember that now. So. Okay. Now you mentioned in the open here you are getting married soon. Now I know you had some teammates previously. Raekwon Wicks was married. I know your former defensive line mate Marcus Soul. He was engaged at one point in time. Had you been in communication with any of those guys? Did they give you any tidbits of knowledge? What has, I guess, this process been like for you?
I wouldn't trade it for anything. I mean, it's I met my fiance and we went to high school together. She played softball. She still plays softball at Oklahoma City University, so we're really close. You know, and as we've just gone through college together, you know, a lot of couples grow apart, do their thing, and we grew together, I think. So I talked to Marcus, and Zane was in the works of getting engaged when he was about done playing, and Cooper McCoy also got married, and you know, you just talk to those guys, and it's like, obviously you have the old cliche like, oh, getting married sucks, like your wife like makes your life miserable, whatever. But all those guys, you know, they're like, as long as you do it the right way, it's great. And I've followed their advice so far. You know, good guidance from them and my family and my mom and dad and my brother. It's been nothing short of incredible. And yeah, I'm super excited.
Good. No, well, I'm glad to hear that. It's just like so many people's becoming. I'm like, dang, I feel like this list is growing every year because I saw, I think Hudson Conrad, I think he proposed. I feel like I saw Drake DeVore propose not too long ago. I'm like, man, this is really cool to see. Like normally I can't say people become family men until they finish, but now I'm like, dang, I gotta call them that while they're here. Now it's gonna be that's definitely a difference, but it's also cool though. I'm truly glad to see that there. One thing. Okay, do you have any pregame routines that you normally do?
Yeah. I mean, I kind of started it when I got to college, but after we get out of every team meeting right before the game, grab my headphones, throw on whatever music I want to listen to. I walk down the middle of the field, walk around the goalpost, and then walk back through. And then I'll either go sit on the bench outside. I just like being outside. So I'll go sit down outside or go to the corner of the end zone and stretch and roll out, do whatever. Sometimes I'll play some catch. I mean, nothing like I said earlier, I'm not superstitious. So as long as the only thing I do every time is roll out and stretch and walk the field. But other than that, it's just kind of, you know, whatever I'm feeling.
Okay. And now, in terms of the gear, now are you more of like just give me the basics, let me go out there and do my thing, or do you where do you fall on that?
Yeah, that I don't look very good in that stuff. I mean, last year, week one, some of the guys had convinced me to put on a Jordan arm sleeve, and I wore it out there for the first half. I was like, man, this looks dumb. Like, I'm watching the iPad, and I'm like, man, I look stupid. So I went and I took it off, and I usually find a thing that is comfortable for me early in the year, and I just wear that look kind of all year. Yeah, I don't put on anything for show. It's all the only thing I do to put on for show, I guess, is like I roll my pants up a little bit like everyone does, but that's about it.
Okay, fair enough. Now who would you say on the defensive line is the best when it comes to the gear?
I don't know. I mean, last year it probably would have been Wesley, although he wore those like pink and blue gloves. I didn't like those, but it's his trip, whatever. Braden Smith would like to think he's the best, and Cam would like to think they're the best, but they're not. I don't really know. Darius was pretty cool, but he wasn't the best either. I don't know. That's a hard question. You got me here.
Okay, wait now. Now I had to ask that. Okay, so now what is it about though Cam and Braden's gear that make you say no? This is not it.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just a hater, but they've got their style, and it's not for me. Like I said, I don't wear it, but it's also just because Braden, he's Braden, and he's a good dude, but he's like jokingly cocky. Like if you were to meet him, I don't think he'd be cocky, but because we know him and we're boys, he's like, oh, I'm the coolest. Like, I've got all the drip on. I'm like, bro, shut up.
That's great. That's great. I guess my final question for you is, what can UCO fans expect to see out of Zacary Stilwell this upcoming season?
I mean, I've never been one to really like put numbers out there. My goal with football is always just to, go have fun, especially this year because it's my last one. So I don't know. I hope you see a good light on the field, a good leader, a great teammate, and someone who's having a lot of fun. That's really what I want to do, is make this last year special and leave my stamp, leave my legacy here for the younger guys. That's what I really want to do.
Cool. Well, Zach, I appreciate you taking time this afternoon to come on and talk to me. I've been a big fan. Obviously, I appreciate your family support. Your dad's been a big supporter, and like literally since you signed. So, and like I said, it was cool covering your brother and now covering you. I always say it's cool covering brothers because they're not the same. And so, yeah, it's just been really, really cool to have done that. And so I'm wishing you the best of luck the rest of the off season. And if you ever want to come back on, just let me know, and we'll be happy to have you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It was a blast.